in America, I should be the #1 post for 2 days in Athens.
Wow.
So, but
Okay.
I basically wrote that post with the intention of telling people what to do in Athens for 2 days. So Google sees that and goes, okay, she has, fulfilled the qualifications.
Thank you for joining the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. This episode's guest, we have Michelle Jensen, travel blogger at travelherstory.com. She also talks about her experience in the entertainment industry and the recent big doors that her blog has opened for her. Here's Michelle. I wanted to start off, you actually had a career in media. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so I actually started my first job in media was I actually worked for the street team for the Jonas Brothers before they were famous. I got that job when I was like 15 or 16 years old, and I designed their website. Basically because their website was broken. I emailed them and I was like, I can fix it. And they were like, okay. Um, else I don't know how I would have gotten that job. But that kind of like set me in the path. I've always been interested in TV and film. I was like a big nerd about like Indiana Jones and a bunch of Disney projects and stuff like that when I was younger. And that always held true for me. And then I kind of got into like Buffy and Supernatural and that kind of shows. So when I was 18, I moved actually out from New York to California. And my first job, my first internship when I was 18 was working for Ridley Scott's company. And then
Oh,
from
wow.
there, yeah, I only saw him the one time though. So people were always like, "Hey, do you hang out?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"No, no, I saw the man walk through over him once." Um, he's a very, very busy guy. He's not hanging out in the office all day. But from there, I interned at a couple other places like Sony, and then wound up getting a full-time job with Sony, and then worked there for a few years, and then was at ABC, CBS, Warner Brothers, for a total of 14 years between starting in LA and the end. So.
And those career moves, was it a pursuit of money, or was it a pursuit of you wanted to learn a particular skill? Like me, I'm more attracted to learning a new skill than I am the money. So if somebody wants to tempt me away, put me into take me completely out of the water, so to speak, and where I have an opportunity to learn something I've never had any contact with before. So was that part of the impetus of moving between those companies?
No, it's more like whatever show will hire you. So being on a TV show, while I was at Sony, I was kind of like a full-time employee
Mhm.
processing what they call dailies. So dailies is the footage they shoot every day. And Gremlin like me would in the middle of the night process the footage so they'd have it for the next morning. And I did that while I was in school. I don't know how I never slept. I would go to work at night and school during the day and then sleep for like 2 hours, something like that. But after that, graduating, I went and worked on different shows, and you're kind of like a teacher where you're like hired for the season, then you're laid off due to lack of work between seasons. So like a couple months between seasons, I'd have time off. And if your show doesn't get renewed or something else happens, you got to go find a new show. And that's how you wind up moving from CBS to Warner Brothers to ABC to wherever is basically hosting the show that you're now on.
And you started, what job were you working at when you started your blog? I think it was you started your blog in 2013. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it's 2013. It seems so long ago now. While I was actually working at Sony in the dailies, because my job there was basically waiting for footage, and this is before they made it digital files. So, say your show is filming in Atlanta and they had to film on like tapes, and you miss the plane, you've got to wait for the next plane. So your footage is not showing up for another 3 hours. So I just would have to sit around and wait. Um, so yeah, I was like, all right, I've got to find something to do. And I think I had finished school by this point, so I didn't have any homework to do or anything like that. And a friend of mine from high school was like, I want to try this blogging thing. Everybody seems to have a blog. And I was like, yeah, yeah, sure, I guess I'll do that. And I had just gotten back from a trip I took for graduating college. Basically, I took a trip to Europe, as many people do, and I came home and everybody's like, "Your trip looked great. What do tell me your itinerary?" And I kind of got annoyed. People kept asking me and having to email it, so I was like, "I'll just put it on the internet." Um, so that's how I went it with the blog because I was like, "Well, this will give me something to blog about."
And I would say 20, I don't know when blogging peaked, because of course blogging went to vlogging. But
Hmm.
I do know like the podcasters that were early adopters. Obviously, podcasts exploded during the pandemic, but a lot of people that got into podcasting before it's peaked, because now we're on the back end of the peak, the easy podcasting and getting all the sponsors, that was over. And I just started in, I think, in March, so I came in after the easy money went away, and obviously I'm not doing this for the money. But yeah, so it sounds like the blogging, I would think 2013 would be peak blogging, where it was kind of much easier to build an audience at that time. So was it a slow burn, or was there this immediate jump in attention, and you had to say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, I have to go somewhere else and write about it now."
No, so actually, I kind of like really I didn't really quite know what I was doing when I started. Um, because I was teaching myself how to do it. So I was kind of just like, I'm just putting something on the internet. I don't know anything about SEO or keywords or Google Analytics or anything like that. And I'd be happy, when I saw somebody was reading it because you can track on Google Analytics, but I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't actually even until this year that I was like, all right, I'm gonna like, seriously learn how to do this, what's SEO, what are keywords, how are we tracking this, all the bells and whistles, that I actually really started picking up more of an audience, because I was only writing in between shows. Again, I was like where I'd work for like 10 months and then I'd have 2 months off between a TV show. So I'd travel for a couple weeks during that time and I'd write during then, but didn't really have enough going on because I was at a desk, 10 months out of the year. So actually back then, 2013, it was so popular to have like a lifestyle blog where you put in drinks recipes or your outfit of the day or whatever, was at that time. So the travel blog kind of like became a lifestyle blog, but then I actually went up getting very involved in the nerd community and it became an app and then transferred back to a travel blog once the app closed. So yeah, no, I definitely did not have the audience I have now way back then when, to your point of easier money, I probably would have had
Sure.
easier money had I known what I was doing back, 11 years ago.
Now you're doing the travel, and of course, I have to say, when I looked at your website, I was very impressed at the visuals on the website. I was like, wow. I mean, it's very splashy. The photos are top notch. I definitely encourage people to take a look at it, and we'll have the full URL at the end. Do you do that design yourself, or does someone else handle that for you?
Yeah, so I use a theme. I'm on WordPress called Cadence. That's a lot of like I kind of like can it if people aren't familiar with web design, like kind of like Lego blocks where like I can pick different things for it to do and like be like, okay, I want a gallery over here and I want a slideshow over here and I want a text block over here. So I design it in the way that I move the blocks around, but I don't do the manual coding other than very light coding that I've recalled since I've been a teenager, where I'll, center an image or something like that. But yeah, I definitely didn't like hard code it or anything like that. But yeah, thank you for your compliment.
Very stunning, visually stunning. I was like, whoa, this looks great. I look at a lot of websites for a lot of guests, and I've had guests that have really great websites, and I've seen some that I really can't tell what are they selling. What is the message? What is the and with
Yeah.
travel, you want excitement, you want color, you want adventure. It's just like when I think about the West Coast, I think about, yeah, what people are telling me about the food in San Diego, or yeah, when all they got to do is start talking about food, and I'm in. I get excited. Now, with that, what's the primary stream of revenue on for your business? Is it mostly coaching and consulting, or is it a membership based? How does that work?
Yeah, so I primarily make money through ads and then affiliates. So affiliates could be everything from tours. So like there's a company called Get Your Guide where I've, taken a tour of, let's say, Seville. And I will write a blog post. I took this tour and I liked it because XYZ, and that's why I think you should like it. And I'll link it. And if you buy that tour, I get a commission. Similarly with Amazon, though the nicer thing with Amazon is so one of my top posts is about this anti-theft purse that I got that I've had for a number of years, and I wrote a whole post on why I like it. Similarly on Amazon, I link it. If you buy that purse, I get a commission. But on top of that, let's say you click on it, but you decide you don't want the purse, but you continue to shop. You buy your sunscreen, a t-shirt, and a book or whatever. I still get a commission because you came through my link.
Fantastic.
So the amount of times that I've seen where like somebody buys a purse and then they buy, light fixtures or whatever. it adds up, the little bit of this and this and this and this. So yeah, Amazon is definitely just one of my favorites just because, I make the extra commission even on something. I'm not promoting light fixtures, but I'm still making money off of it. And then ads is just, whatever's placed on the website is a nice way to make some kind of passive income because if I don't work on the blog today, there's still ads on it and I'm still making money. So
And the ads, and of course, obviously, ads are a little bit different than a sponsorship. But are those companies approaching you, or is this something automatic through WordPress where you open it up to ads and you get to pre-select who advertises? Walk us through that because there's a lot of people that are curious about how that works.
yeah, so there's different ad networks you can apply to. I was formerly at She Media. I actually just this week switched to Journey by Mediavine. What ad network you can get into will depends on how many views or sessions you
Mhm.
have. So I believe for She Media, they say 10,000 views a month, I believe. I've heard people with less get in. Um, for Journey by Mediavine, I believe it's 10,000. Main Mediavine, which is like the big one that you like hope to get in as a blogger, and I'm hopefully on my way there, is 50,000 sessions a month.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, just depending on like you got to look at your analytics to see basically who you can go to. And there's other ones, but those are the main ones that I've dealt with. I know there's one called like Ezoic. I'm trying to remember what the other ones were. Raptive, I think, is another one. But yeah, you got to look at their specifications of do you meet their qualifications, basically.
And how do you drive 10,000 pairs of eyeballs to a website? How does that work?
Mostly through SEO. And if you don't know what SEO stands for, it's search engine optimization. So basically telling Google what your page is about. So if I write a post on I have a great post on Athens that ranks really well. And a keyword for that I've targeted is 2 days in Athens. So if you go on Google, and it will depend by country. So if you're in France and Googling this, it might not be the same search results. But in America, I should be the number one post for 2 days in Athens.
Wow.
So, but
Okay.
I basically wrote that post with the intention of telling people what to do in Athens for 2 days. So Google sees that and goes, okay, she has, fulfilled the qualifications. And Google's very, very smart. I mean, I know a lot of people have been like getting upset about AI, snatching content and building posts, but the amount of times that I've seen them, they'll be like, what to do in Athens, and it will tell you like the Eiffel Tower, and you're like, it's not in Greece. That's not where it's located. So I think as long as people like myself or any other kind of content creator still comes from like a genuine place, I think people still want to see like a genuine experience. And that's why, to your point about my page, my face is on it on the front page a lot. And that's because I want people to know I'm a real person. I don't really love having my face everywhere on it, but I don't want them to think it's AI spitting this out. I want them to be like, okay, this girl actually went there. We know she has experience here. I should listen to her opinion because it's real. So I hope that genuine comes across. But yeah, SEO is my main way to drive traffic. And then I don't really make money through social media. A lot of people are assume that Instagram or TikTok or something is where I get a lot of my views. The only form of social media I get some views from is Pinterest. But Pinterest is kind of more like Google than a TikTok or an Instagram. And then it's like a visual search engine. So when I'm planning my trips, I'll go on Pinterest and type in, things to do in Barcelona, and it will come up with people's blog posts on Barcelona, and especially if there are things to do. So that's the only like place other than Google I primarily get traffic from.
So are you actually looking what people are looking for before planning trips so that you're kind of playing to the algorithm, or are you planning where you want to go and then trying to figure out how to optimize that?
In the past, I would say I didn't look at any of that at all. It was basically just where I wanted to go. And I've even, because I actually stopped blogging between 2020 and this year because 2020, obviously nobody was going anywhere. And I was like, nobody's looking at this. Like, I'll just, I let it live up there. I just didn't do anything with it. So I'm actually catching up on posts on trips that I took in maybe 2021 or 2022 now and writing for keywords. But like, for instance, Barcelona, I went to 2 years ago now, 2, 3 years ago. And something I realized with keywords is like a lot of people are talking about solo travel in Barcelona. So I decided I was solo in Barcelona, so that did help in hindsight. But I made sure to write posts about solo traveling in Barcelona. So I'm kind of like reverse engineering in that way a little bit. For a trip I have coming up, I'm going to Belize and Bacalar, Mexico, which is like just above Belize. It's on like the south of like Cancun and Tulum. That's a place I actually saw other people posting about that I was like, okay, this place like hopefully will blow up because it looks just as beautiful as a Cancun and Tulum, but doesn't have the price tag because it's not Cancun and Tulum. So I'm going with hopefully the foresight that, next year or the year after when everybody and their brother's going, I'll have one of the big posts because there's certain places, yeah, that are not filled out yet. For instance, Rovaniemi, Finland, I was there earlier this year in January. Rovaniemi is within their Arctic Circle, so real cold. -20 Fahrenheit was one day. Um, and there's not a lot of content on Rovaniemi because people are not heading up to the Arctic Circle, which of course means there's less search volume, but also means that, something comparable to Paris or London, I have a little bit better of a chance of fighting on, space for Google. So.
When you mentioned the temperature, I could almost envision myself on Shark Tank because I love that phrase where they go. And for that reason, I'm out because I'm in Florida because I like heat. Man, and even though I think winter is so beautiful and the ice, somebody sent me, it had to be Iceland, the blue ice caves.
Yeah, I think I've seen
Oh,
pictures of it.
it's magic. I mean, my gosh. And these are natural phenomenon, just like water is blue. If you pack enough ice together and it has a slick surface, it's blue as well. But it looks magic. It looks like something out of a Hollywood production. In Barcelona, I've had a strong desire to go there for a very long time. I saw some architecture by Gaudi. For those that don't know, he designed these buildings. He didn't like straight lines, so everything is round and almost psychedelic and just beautiful to behold. What's some of your top memories from Barcelona?
Oh gosh, I was such a Gaudi fangirl last time I left
Oh wow.
Barcelona.
I had no
I
idea.
had I had knew who he was going into it, but I
Yeah.
was like kind of saw it on. I think the problem is I got a little jaded. You see something on Instagram or whatever, and I'm well aware now enough that like somebody may have edited it and it doesn't exactly look like that. There's plenty of places where we'll see, like, oh, it's so colorful, and then sometimes you get there and you're like, oh, they must have turned up the saturation. It doesn't exactly look like that. So I think I was expecting that one as a Gaudi where I'd go there and be like, it's not what I saw on Instagram. So I went with a little bit lower expectation, which I think was perfect because when I got there and realized how much detail he puts into like every corner of a room. And he also was like way ahead on sustainability. The amount of stuff that they're like, oh yeah, all these mosaics were like pottery that they took from some other thing that was broken and they reused it and created this gorgeous thing. And you're like, they were doing that back then? I didn't know. Like I was assuming like he's so rich and all these people he's making buildings for are so rich they would like be like, what's sustainability? He also like created so many cool things. I mean, I'm not technologically smart enough for a lot of the stuff, but like the ways he would build certain rooms so that they would be cooler because they didn't have like air conditioning back then. So thinking about things like that, like in your design, which I'm sure the average person did, but like I think he took it to the next level, like
Yeah,
as
it
an
sounds
architecture.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I noticed something on your website that goes into where you were talking about you got that level of detail and appreciation for Gaudi because of the complexity of it. It also sounds like you're hyper vigilant in your planning, maybe a I'm just guessing, I'm not a psychiatrist, but maybe high strung type A, very organized list. And your blog, I would assume, encourages that too, because I can tell you, excuse me, I have friends that are spontaneous, but they have, in my opinion, have disastrous vacations, whereas I hyperplan and I haven't had a bad vacation because there's plans and alternate plans. There's if it's going to rain, if it's going to, and I'm always ready for multiple scenarios. And I think I have a more quality adventures because of that. And I think there's a misconception that planning kind of sucks the enjoyment out of it. But I completely disagree with that. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I'm like travel OCD, I call it. Because I feel like if you're gonna spend all that money, why aren't you at least having some outline? And I'm not saying you need to be like, okay, at 10:15 we're gonna be here, and at 10:46 we're gonna be at this next place, and 2:23 we're gonna be at this next place. I'm not like that. Like people think like I am, and I'm like, no, no, no. But I will be like, okay, the Louvre, really busy, should go in the morning. For instance, Bacalar, Mexico, where I'm going next, I know that I Googled and they like closed on Wednesday, and closed as in like they're trying to preserve the environment so they won't let you do boat tours and things like that. So you can go swimming and like go to a restaurant and go to like land stuff. But they close on Wednesdays basically to preserve the beautiful lagoons and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that's something if you showed up for like let's say 2 days and your days are Wednesday and Thursday and you thought you were going to go to some lagoons or something on Wednesday, you're SOL. Like that's something I want to know ahead of time. So yeah, I can't do, I mean, I remember when I went on a trip to Europe and I went to Ireland and I was by myself and some girls were, I was staying at a hostel at the time and some girls, yeah, they just didn't plan and they went up like tagging along with me because they're like, oh, you have the list. And I was like, because I did the research beforehand. Like,
For you as a blogger, I think what I would think since especially since the website is so photo generated, there's only certain times a day where you can produce a really good photo. If you take a photo from 12 to 2 anywhere on planet Earth, it's probably not going to be a good photo because the sun just bleaches all the colors out. Like Gaudi's architecture, I would assume at top of noon, it would just blast out all the colors from his. So that's got to be tough. I would assume you plan some of your photography around the solar cycle, I would think, the time of day.
I mean, like if I'm going to like, I know, for instance, when I went to Greece, we went to Santorini, and we went to Oya, and there's like the beautiful sunset and everything, and people apparently wait in lines to take pictures near the blue domed churches and stuff. I was like, I can't do this. But what I did was reserve dinner at sunset, so I knew I had a guaranteed view
Oh,
on their rooftop.
I love it.
As a way I'll do that, where you're not sacrificing hours to take a photo, but instead at dinner, and I could just take the photo while I'm at dinner. Because yeah, I'm not one of those Instagram people who need to take 8 gajillion photos of myself in front of Park Güell or whatever. That was actually the busiest place I was in Barcelona,
Oh
was that
wow.
park. Just like everybody, like it felt like every 5 feet somebody had their like selfie stick out. And instead I was just like, look at this mosaics. That's the nerd in me though. I went with a friend to Italy and I brought her we were in Venice, brought her to this house. And I'm like, this is Marco Polo's house. And she was like, who? I was like,
Oh, quit
no.
it.
I was like, now I have to plan explain who Marco
Wow.
Polo is and the significance and the Silk Road and whatnot. So yeah, I'm always more like a little bit more of like the history nerd and take like cool stuff, pictures of that stuff rather than the perfect Instagram photo of me. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, like I said, for the Greece example, will plan a smart way to do that.
And I like the out of the way places that most people don't go and I hadn't left the country. Let's see, 1992 was the last time I was outside the United States until last year. I actually lived in Europe for almost 2 years and I traveled extensively through there and had a wonderful experience. I was in the military at the time. And then last year, I had an opportunity to go to Puerto Rico, which I'd been wanting to go to forever. And I started asking people where they went because I wanted to go somewhere else, maybe South or Central America. And I was, hearing everybody talk about different places. And I've never been I'm not interested in cruises. I'm not interested in this kind of where they create this tourist ecosystem. I want to be with the people. I want to eat what the people eat, what the working class people do. I want a taste of the real culture. And a lot of times I experience culture through the what I would call working class food. And I get this and I have these great stories and interactions because of that. So after hearing about Mexico and these different places, I noticed nobody mentioned Nicaragua. And so I read a little bit about it. I was like, oh, they've got good food. They've got volcanoes, they've got lakes, They've got mountains. They have what they call the cloud forest, Selva Negra, and it's cheap. And I see the trend happening now where, of course, inflation is just eating our savings away. So people are looking for those bargain adventures. And now we're starting to see a lot of Americans visiting Nicaragua, which I thought was fantastic. You can get there in a 2.5 hour flight from Houston or Miami. And to give you an idea how cheap it is, I was in the capital city, dinner for two, steak, appetizer, don't drink alcohol, but the whole thing and dessert, $42. And I mean, the restaurant was so nice that the daughter of the president of the country was two tables over,
Dang.
$42 for two. So, and I always have a weird feeling when I share this because I want people to know, I want people to get a bargain, but I don't want too many people to go and ruin it. Do you ever get that feeling like I don't want everybody to know? But I think Nicaragua I think you'll see, especially when people have to on a tighter budget, great surfing there. It's like Florida. They have an Atlantic coast and a Pacific coast. So yeah, I'm going to go back as soon as they let us off this mandatory overtime. I'll probably go back because there's so much to see down there.
For sure. I mean, I've never been there, but it sounds similar to my upcoming trip to Belize and Bacalar, where like, yeah, there's so much. And I have relatives that like wouldn't are like, why would you go to Mexico? Because they think like it's scary. And I get like I actually met some girls from Russia recently. One of them's from Siberia, and I forget what the other one's from. And they look very both ethnically Asian. And some guy at our table was like, I didn't know there was Asian people in Russia. And I was like, yeah, our American view is like Putin, or you get like Russian spies in like spy movies. Like I was like, you don't see the average Russian person in American cinema, which is probably our best exposure, and then the news where you're going to get a politician. And I think that's kind of the same for like some countries, either in Central America or South America. We have like kind of like you just get the drug smuggler kind of
Yeah.
vibe, and you forget that there's like the average human that also lives there
Yeah.
and has probably a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen, however you pronounce his last name, he played a Russian, and he's not right. I don't have a drop of Russian in it. But yeah, when you were saying Russia, I was like, yeah, Mongolia is right there, and of course, Mongolia conquered deep into Russia. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's this amazing mix of cultures. Even and just to take another second on Nicaragua, Nicaragua is really four regions in one country. It's about the size of Colorado, and you can almost take a plus sign and split it into four segments. There are, I think, 18 indigenous languages there, and I mean these are each unique cultures. I had no idea. I asked people about it. Nobody knows anything about Nicaragua, And I've actually had
Yeah.
a Nicaragua real estate agent on for people interested in a deal. They've got oceanfront houses, not ocean view. I'm talking about ocean front. The ocean's right there. $200,000, two-story houses. Not making it up. Check out Todd Devon's episode.
Okay. My only one concern is because I have family in Florida is do they get hurricanes?
No, not on that side. Not on the
Okay.
Pacific side. The
That would be
Atlantic
my only
side, yeah.
concern.
Yeah, no. They have some volcanoes, but none, I don't
So
think none of
hopefully
the
not Pompeii.
yeah, not
Okay.
Pompeii. Oh, yeah, I saw your post about that. I thought, oh Lord, are those real bodies? And then I read that they're I guess casts of the bodies from Pompeii.
Yeah,
But
the
that's
void.
amazing. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I think people should go to your website and check that out because that was an amazing exhibition. They're in California.
Yeah, so that exhibition was a couple years ago. There's the Reagan Library that's near me has great traveling exhibits. I mean, I've seen one on Disney there, Pompeii, Leonardo da Vinci, um, the Lost Cities of Egypt, I think it was called. And I've actually gone to real Pompeii since I just haven't caught up on that trip yet. And what real Pompeii I mean by actually in Italy, not just the traveling exhibition, but the way they did that exhibition, they showed this video when you walked in that was kind of a time lapse of like the day before and then like almost kind of hour by hour, like smoke starts showing up out of the volcano and then, things start coming out of it. And like everybody's kind of just like, oh, it's a little bit of rumbles. It's just an earthquake again, because we get these all the times. And then yeah, at the point, like basically it starts to be too late that like even if you left, there's no chance for you. And it was just so the best I can compare it to is probably going to like a Holocaust museum or like maybe the Titanic museum where you just realize like how many people just like basically evaporated because the heat, and the cast that you're talking about, for people who don't know, they have like um the ash preserved the shape of these people, and obviously it's been like 2000 years, so they're no longer in there. But what they did is I think they filled it with cement or something, the void, so you can see the shape of like somebody crouching down and trying to protect themselves. I think there was a woman and a child at one point that like they're holding on to each other. Because yeah, at that point, like what else do you can't run from it. You can't get away. But it just you look at it and you're like, that was somebody in their last moments. That will live on forever because they unfortunately have this. So yeah, if you get a chance to either go to the Pompeii traveling exhibit or go to Pompeii itself, I highly recommend it.
If let's pick two places. If someone has a relatively large travel budget, where would you recommend?
Gosh, I feel like the most expensive trip I went on was Rovaniemi, Finland. So if you want cold and you want to spend a pretty penny, go there. They have the ice hotel. They have reindeer sledding. I ate a lot of reindeer. Sorry, Rudolph. I saw the Northern Lights several times.
Wow.
I went ice floating. I went snowmobiling. Did snowshoeing. There's so much I did on that trip that I'm like probably forgetting things. Um, yeah, we ate in an ice restaurant. We went to an ice bar. Um, yeah, so many different things in Rovaniemi, Finland to do. And that's why it's kind of more expensive versus going to a place like maybe like Washington, D.C., right? All the Smithsonian's are free. They're all museums you can walk into. Rovaniemi is a lot of like experiences. So you're signing up to do reindeer sledding. You're signing up to do ice floating. So you're paying a fee to basically do that experience, which is not usually my thing. I'm usually much more of a museum person, but my friend, she wanted to go for her birthday to see the Northern Lights. So, but yeah, that would be my recommendation if you've got a budget and you want to do something unusual.
Yeah, a friend of mine went to Mauritius and had a similar experience. I think he actually stayed there for about 2 weeks. And not many Americans go to Mauritius. That's a big location for Australians and people from the UK. And it's amazing island. I would encourage people to take a look at it. It's a very luxury experience. And of course, I'm sure you ran into a lot of nice people, but who are the friendliest? What's the friendliest culture you've bumped into so far?
Well, I know Finland is supposed to be like the happiest people, and they seem really great. I would just say, I think like just because the way I look and everybody, if you're just listening and not looking, I'm a very white girl with blonde hair, even though this is highlighted. Everybody in Sweden just started talking Swedish to me, so apparently I look enough Swedish to pass. But the nice thing was the minute I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know in Swedish, they immediately were like, "Oh, no worries," and would translate in English. So I think that was more just kind of like fun because yeah, I mean, I went into a Viking bar in Sweden and people were just chit chatting with each other. It was just a very nice, relaxed culture of people just being friendly. And I don't know if that has to do something to do with the fact that I look Swedish. I'm Danish, which I didn't tell them because they have an ancient rivalry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna bring this up. I don't think anybody would have done anything. I did nothing against the Swedes, but it's definitely like something they bring up in their culture is like the Danes. We were going after them. So I didn't bring that up.
Well, I hate to ask, but is there any country or city that you would give a two thumbs down to?
I don't know if it could quite two thumbs down. The only place I ever felt kind of about was Paris. Um, Parisians, I will say everybody but in Paris was very nice to me. The people in Paris kind of, yeah. I walked into one church and the guy like taking tickets just looked me up and down and he went, California. And I was like,
Wow. Welcome to Paris.
yeah, you're right. But like he said it in like such like a distasteful way that I was like, I feel like this is a judgment.
Yeah.
So, and nobody like did anything like inappropriate or like did anything like that, but it was just more like kind of like that where I'm like, I just have the vibe that you just don't like me. And all I've done is show up here. And again, that was at a tourist location. It wasn't like I was just showing up to some random space. I was literally at a church that plenty of other tourists were going to. So,
And every person that I know personally that has visited Paris has some version of exactly that experience. Now, what about bargain hunters? So far, what the place where you really felt like you got the most bang for the buck?
oh, Thailand. Thailand, if you can get a cheap flight. So when I went, I had flown to Italy first, and then went from Italy to Thailand and then home. So I actually wound up, because I had points and a voucher, I only paid $400 to go all the way around the world. Um, so I have a friend who's actually going to Thailand in December and she's paying like $1,600. I think she's nuts. So if you can find a cheap flight, that's usually the biggest cost. I had a meal for Thailand they have a floating market where they'll make food next to you. I got pad Thai for like, I think the equivalent of $1.10.
Were you in Bangkok, which is the capital city, or did you spend some time? A lot of people go to Phuket, which is the big beach resort.
Yeah, so I started in Bangkok, then I went to Chiang Mai, which is
Chiang Mai.
northern
That's right.
Thailand.
Yeah.
Then I went Phuket. No, then I went to Krabi, and then I went to Phuket, and then I went to Bangkok. So I kind of did like a loop of south and north. But yeah, all was pretty affordable. The only problem I had is I went like kind of like right after quarantine, so there was like nobody there.
Right.
So much so that I was in a Michelin starred restaurant, and I was the only customer
Ooh,
in that
wow.
restaurant.
Now, Chiang Mai, that's where the ecotourism happens. Is that right? That's kind of the forests in the north and
Yeah, it's the jungles and the elephants and I mean it was like it was straight out of like an Indiana Jones movie. I was in temples that were like surrounded by jungle and I was sending pictures home and everybody was like, that looks like a movie set. I was like, it's real though. I
yeah.
swear it is. It's real.
If
Um
if I get over there and that's high on the list too, I'd have to run over to I forget that temple that's next door, the country next door. It's either Laos or Cambodia
Cambodia,
where that ancient temple is where
Angkor Wat.
yeah, that's it. That's it. I have to see that before I check out of here.
Yeah, that's on my list. Unfortunately, when I went, because it was like right after COVID, the only places open was Thailand. And I had a voucher I needed to spend. So I was like, because yeah, everybody was like, why don't you go see more? And I was like, because I couldn't legally.
Yeah.
Um, else I would have.
And Thailand
So,
had pretty high restrictions as far as travel, I guess up until that point where you were able to get in because there were a lot of people that went there regularly. Now, I guess the upside to that is now because they took such a hit in their tourism during COVID because their policies were so restrictive, it's a better deal now. And it's exactly like what you said, what friends have been saying, that the flight is really the big expensive thing. And then once you get there, as long as you don't spend like crazy, it's hard to spend a lot of money there, especially if you're paying $2 or $3 for a great meal. Now, I heard Phuket is much more expensive than the rest of Thailand. Was that also your experience?
yeah, it's kind of more like the touristy section. That's where you kind of get like a lot of the bars and stuff like that, which I didn't really realize until I got there because I was staying in a Marriott because I was like, I'm never going to be able to stay at these five-star hotels back in America. Might as well like live it up. So I was staying in like the fancy area and I didn't realize. And then I went on a tour bus, doing like I forget where we were going, but we went somewhere around that area and they were dropping off other people on the tour and I was like, what is this? And it reminded me of like Bourbon Street in New Orleans was the
Oh, okay.
vibe.
Been there
And
many times.
I was like, oh,
They know me.
okay.
They know me
I
down there.
understand what this is now.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the only place I spent and accidentally spent like a ton of money, the tallest restaurant or tallest rooftop bar is in Bangkok. It was in the Hangover 2, I think, is like what the famous movie it was. And I was like, oh, I'll go because it's like the tallest or whatever. And I thought I was going for a drink and went up signing up for dinner, and it was like 8 course meal. So it was far more expensive than my $1.20. I don't regret it because I did it, you know. But yeah, I did not expect to spend that much money. It was over $100, and that was like expensive for Thailand.
this blog opened an incredible door to you. We talked a little bit about in the pre-show discussion. Tell us about, if you can, share with us what company approached you and how and what that opportunity entails.
Yeah, so on my LinkedIn, I had a recruiter reach out to me about a role at AAA. I haven't quite started yet. It starts in about a week. But yeah, they reached out to me because they're looking for basically what I do for my blog, which is write travel guides and kind of talk about the benefits of AAA. So I'm very excited that my hobby blog is now kind of turned into the adult job type stuff. So it's not just a hobby anymore, it's a full-time gig, at least for a contract role for a little while. So hopefully they like me to keep me young enough. But yeah, if you're on the AAA website in the next couple of weeks, you might be seeing something from me.
Yeah. Great company. I can't go into detail, but I've had very positive dealings with them. Great company. Now, for people that are interested in your blog, how can people find you?
Yeah, so it's called Travel Her Story. So basically, rather than history, it's her. And you can find that on Google or just put in travelherstory.com. I'm on social media under all those handles as well, except for TikTok because somebody stole it. Well, I was just late. I know they didn't steal it. And so it's Travel Her Story blog on TikTok.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Was there any questions you wish I had asked?
No, I don't think so. I just encourage people to, if you're passionate about blogging and it doesn't have to be in travel, it could be anything. Try it out. I would just say make sure to learn SEO because, like I said, that's what really got me monetizing and actually making money, significant money month to month. Like I said, through ads and affiliates. So
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you coming on.
thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. To support the channel, please click like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode. The book Scintilla, The Ultimate Guide to Generating Business Ideas, Products, and Services, is now available on Amazon. It's available as an ebook, softcover, and hardcover. Please find the link to the Amazon page in the description, as well as other links relevant to this episode.